Okay, here we go. Stand by. 3, 2, 1, action.
Assume nothing.
Rash, bald-faced blasphemy.
Question everything.
I find it extremely hard to imagine.
Open your eyes.
It is quite all right to be an atheist.
The fastest growing group of people in the country has been measured as being those who have no belief or who are atheists.
You don't have to be apologetic or quiet about it.
Challenge the opposition.
You see religion on 100 fronts losing the argument.
And start thinking. This is the Thinking Atheist worldwide.
If there's any subject that is more polarizing than religion, it's got to be politics, right? And the challenge I have with this show, and the reason I almost didn't do it, is because so often when we address the issue of religion and politics, that everybody with a soapbox uses that as an excuse to sort of take the bunny trail off into whatever other agenda they have. And I see it all the time on my Facebook page and my YouTube page, and I get emails from people talk about, the separation of church and state. You start dealing with issues of the Constitution and which governments are religious and in what way and which are not and how effective they are. They automatically just spin into oblivion. Everybody starts talking about this and that and this type of government, and this government should be abolished and anarchy for all, and becomes jabs and slurs and one just pot shot after the other. That's really not what I want this show to be. That's just lazy, isn't it? I mean, I know you've got an opinion. It's not that I don't want to hear your opinion, but let's try, if we can, to make sure we are addressing religion in politics and the influences of religion and politics. If you have a soapbox and you go off on a tangent, I'll let you go for a short while, and then we'll probably have to just move on. Fair enough? And, religion in at least American politics, you can't escape it. And I'll tell you a secret. I went to Christian schools when I was a kid, and it was essentially taught to us that we need good Christian men and women in roles of leadership. And they were grooming us as young children. And they would just say it. Of course, I went to a private Christian school. They would say, look, we have to have people out there who are godly, moral, upright representatives for Scripture, for scriptural truth, for the church, for God, for one nation under God. And that's why it's so important that you remain involved in your community and your local, state, and federal governments. They didn't necessarily say outright, we need you to run for office. I mean, that was never the deal. But it was always get involved, make a difference, let your voice be heard, vote, stand on the picket line if you have to, and let those representatives know that God is represented out there and godly men and women are represented. And that's essentially what we were taught as children. It was missional. We have to go out and protect the home team. We have to go out. Otherwise, those secular humanists are just going to take over, and it's going to be chaos out there. It was almost a fear tactic. What happens if we give up God? Now, I don't know how much of the rest of the world works, but I, in my mind, can't think of an overt, non-believing political candidate. I just can't think of one. Someone who runs a political ad always uses God and their faith as a tactic to gain credibility and get elected, don't they? We've all seen the commercials. John Doe is a man of the people. And the music plays very patriotic. Ta-da-da. A family man, a community man. He relates to the working class. He believes in American values, God and country. Or they'll say faith. John Doe is a man of faith. Well, they play it like a chess piece. You don't know anything about him, really. But by positing himself as a man of God, he is attempting to buttress his own credibility, to make himself more electable. So if they realize that they are going to gain influence out there. Well, let's just play the God card wherever we go. Now, it seems every political candidate decides to go that direction. God, faith. He's a man of faith, of values. And yet we are supposed to be a nation where church and state are protected from each other. It's not that the state is against the church or against religion. I don't believe it should be. You should be able to practice a faith or religion in a free society. It's just the way it is. But if somebody was to run for office and say, I don't believe, put your hand in the air, I don't buy any of this, I would like to be your elected official, at least here in my part of the country, and I think for president and most of the major positions, it's political suicide. Hi, I'm an atheist. Vote for me. Next. You're gone. I'd like to hear your experiences. I'd like to hear your opinions on the subject. I will say outright that I don't bring a standard viewpoint. I know that many in the atheist movement tend to skew, at least in my experience, tend to skew very left. I do not. There are many people who decry patriotism. I do not. I love my country. I really believe it needs to be fixed from the inside out. And I honestly see the influence and influx of religion into the political system as mostly just disingenuous fluff, a mask, a charade. But what scares me even more is those who truly buy it, who truly get it, who understand the tenets of their faith, and they still want me to vote for them. When a guy runs for office who is a devout Mormon, even if I was asked to separate his religious belief from what he is and does politically, how do I separate in my mind the fact that the guy believes the Joseph Smith story and quite possibly is wearing temple garments underneath his suit or flannel shirt with his sleeves rolled up or whatever? How do I separate that tremendous lack of judgment and discernment and education with his qualifications to make other decisions? It bleeds over. I think religion hurts the political system tremendously. Your calls, your emails, and your opinions. Let's talk first to area code 708 on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Thanks for waiting. Who's this?
Hi, Seth. This is Dominic.
Dominic, what's up, man?
I've talked to you on the internet or through email a few times, and you probably already know that I'm an anarchist. But what I wanted to say is I'm an anarchist in the same way that I'm an atheist. I mean, I'm an anarchist because I don't believe in government, not because there are anarchists out there that are in a sense, the anarchy is a religion for them, just as atheism for some atheists is a religion. It isn't a reasoned position; it's just a faith. And what I'm trying to get at is the idea that for me, a problem that I find with a lot of skeptics is that they're skeptical about religion and therefore they become atheists. But nobody ever thinks about applies that same thing to politics. I think politics is a religion, at least for me. I think that it's an argument from authority that we need government because it's government, and because we need government to be good. That's the same argument that we get about religion, that we need religion to be good. And I think it's all bullshit. The whole point, at least for me, is to apply the same skepticism that I did that made me an atheist to government that sort of makes me an anarchist. Not a capital A anarchist, but a small A anarchist. I mean, like I said, it's just that I don't buy into the idea that we need a government, that we need politics. This whole Republicans versus Democrats thing is all a bunch of garbage. They're all two heads of the same coin. You see what I mean?
What benefits does the anarchist position bring to the table? Does it eliminate? Is it that it eliminates the religion card? I mean, why not? Don't tell me why you're anti-government, whether it has religion in it or not. Tell me why you are pro-anarchy. What does it bring? What does it benefit?
The idea is that, for me at least, anarchy is just the idea that government isn't necessary, and I realize I'm not silly enough to think that we could just drop the government and everything would be fine. I think that it'd be awful just because everybody that had entitlement payments coming would have fits and all that kind of craziness. But what I think dropping the belief in government is a kind of freedom. I mean, it frees at least me up to the idea that, you know, my life is mine. It doesn't belong to them. And that I don't know. It's just for me, the whole concept of government is controlling. It's looking for a big daddy out there that's going to take care of us all.
So you see government almost in a religious context.
Yeah.
There is a higher power that you adhere to. There is a rule of law that you must obey, or there are consequences. And yet, at the end of the day, it is all corrupt or it is all misled.
Exactly.
But forgive the question, but the idea of everybody doing exactly what they want with no structure. I understand that corruption is rampant in politics, and I'm sure we can all get crazy about examples of those who've tremendously abused and misused the office of being the servant of the people, supposedly. But the idea of just abolishing government altogether, we're all one world, we're all a big happy family, we all do our own thing and live our lives in kumbaya, that just seems ridiculous to me. I mean, the idea that there would be no structure, no government, no rule of law.
I think that presumes that people are basically evil, that people wouldn't behave themselves without a government telling them what to do, the same way that the religious people think that people wouldn't behave themselves without the Ten Commandments, or without a belief that God's going to burn them in hell forever if they don't do the right thing.
Well, look, some people are. I'm not saying that people need to be herded like sheep, but some people, if there are no consequences, if there is no rule of law, if there is no structure in place, they'll be like an F5 tornado. There'll be just to be a damage path. Their entire life will be just, some people honestly require boundaries, and I think societies require boundaries. Otherwise, if everyone's doing whatever they want, it's pandemonium, it's chaos. And I don't know if by believing in the structure of government that you can relate that to believing in religion necessarily. I mean, governments are man-made. Governments have a system in place that can be measured. They have rules of law that they're created and enforced by men and women. We're not necessarily speaking about an invisible floating deity with edicts to go and pierce the bodies of children with swords. And you can talk about the rule of Scripture versus the rule of government, but I don't see that there's a direct correlation between the two.
To get into the details would probably take all year. For the whole idea, I'm not trying to say that we need to just get rid of government. Mm-hmm. I don't think we can. I don't think it's, it would take probably the 500 years for it to ever really happen. I believe that people are basically good-natured and will be good to one another so long as they are in communities. I mean, it's like I need to get along with you because I need to trade with you. I need to be sure that you're not going to steal my stuff, so I don't steal your stuff. Things like that. I think people will behave themselves. There are crazy people out there. There always was, there always will be. And if you think about it, they're still there. We have government, they're still there. And so what's government doing about it? Well, it's imprisoning whole bunches of them, a lot of them for things that really didn't harm anybody. But that's another subject altogether.
We can take that buddy trail off in the woods and never come back. Well, sure. I appreciate your opinion. I did an interview with Stephen Mullinex, he's big into the anarchist, and he'd asked me about my life story. We did a radio interview a year ago, and I know he was. You familiar with him?
Yes.
And, he and I, we have different opinions on the role of government in whatever form and whatnot. But, I was always fascinated after that to hear more about his opinion and, what he thought and why. And I would encourage people to check him out. I mean, you know, agree, disagree, but it'd be worth exploring. And I appreciate your opinion and your call. Is that all you had for me?
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Appreciate your call.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Take care.
That's a beautiful thing about this show, by the way, is the fact that I can hear and you can hear so many differing points of view. There is a real trap that people fall into when we stop speaking because we disagree. I think that, honestly, it speaks to the security of your argument and quite often to maturity. If you're in the room with someone and you can't abide a disagreeing opinion, I mean, it may frustrate you. That's cool. You may vehemently disagree with it. But if you simply can't abide it, I'm out of here, screw you, you know, you're all stupid, you slam the door and you leave. Well, that speaks to something else. That means your opinion's either too small, it won't stand the test, or you just got a maturity issue. The world is filled with people who disagree with you, and we all must live and exist together. Our Facebook page, we can bring just about anything up. The fact that we disagree on the subject of God doesn't mean we agree on everything else, but it's a great opportunity for us to open the doors of discussion. It's funny, I had a message in from Alex. Alex said, there's no doubt that religion will have a great impact on our government's decision-making process for a long time. I do think that we free thinkers are making progress in limiting its role in government, and eventually in the far future, things will be a lot different. With the help of our current great technology, our point is getting across a lot faster than ever before, and the future will only get even better. Alex had a question. What kind of government would we expect to have in the future different from the U.S. government we have now? Would it have, a government without religion? Would it have a constitution? And if so, how would it differ from the U.S. Constitution? What type of government would be ideal for free thinkers to be the majority in this world? You're going to open up a can of worms with that one, because free thinkers vary on the role of government, the form of government, dramatically. By the way, speaking of the U.S. Constitution, if you hear people say that America is a Christian nation, it means they haven't done their homework. You know, our founding fathers, in the classrooms and in Sunday schools, they told us, the founding fathers, we're believers. We are a Christian nation, and they paint a picture as you're growing up of George Washington and John Adams and Franklin. Everybody's got their hand over their heart, proudly pledging allegiance to their heavenly Father. What the truth of it is, if you do any homework, you realize that many did not believe, or if nothing else, were deists. They didn't adhere to the Christian God. They didn't adhere to the Scriptures. And then they pull out, the Pledge of Allegiance says under God, without, of course, doing the homework to realize that under God was actually added in, I think, the 1950s to the American Pledge of Allegiance. It wasn't in the original version. In God We Trust on the money, it wasn't originally on American money either. Our founding fathers didn't do that. That happened after the Civil War. There was like a religious resurgence after the Civil War, and they added that to the money. In God We Trust. People talk all the time about how America is a Christian nation. God and country, God and country, God and country, and it's important for us here in America to have the facts, to have the information, and to know the biographies of those who were our founding fathers, so we can hold a hand up in the air and say, actually, you are incorrect, and here's how and why. Usually won't change anybody's mind, but at least it puts it on their radar. Area code 847. Thanks for waiting. You're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. We're talking religion and politics. Is that a mistake? I don't know. Who's this?
This is Nick.
Nick, what's going on? You got an opinion on this very touchy subject?
Yeah, I live in Illinois here, so I've witnessed the whole. If you know about Blagojevich, ex-Governor Blagojevich, and all that business, and
Dude, I'm sorry, you guys drew the short end of the political stuff there, buddy. Every time I read the paper,
a way to pose it lightly, yeah.
Something jacked up is happening in Chicago politics. So,
yeah.
What's your perspective?
And historically, that's how it is too. But for somebody who's I'm 18, so I'm kind of an anomaly amongst my friends. I don't have too many people to talk politics with, but I like to follow politics. I'm a regular C-SPAN watcher, so kind of a politics nerd that way. And one thing I always notice is that it's almost a given if you're a politician that you must be not only religious but Christian. It's kind of the American voting base, and this can be on the federal level too, is not really not very open to people who aren't religious. they're not very open to people that aren't specifically Christian. I mean, if you have somebody, imagine somebody running for president or Senate or something like that as a Muslim, I mean, they're probably not going to get as much support. So, I mean, just to state the obvious, that kind of relationship in politics is rampant here. And, I mean, it's, to kind of juxtapose it, in England, I know, sometimes I watch Prime Minister's questions where the Prime Minister will go to I think it's the House of Commons in England, I'm not sure which house, but Parliament, and they'll just ask questions, and it's a, you know, if you've ever seen the English Parliament at work, it's, whew, they really go at it. And, you know, in America, and everybody speaks with, you know, God bless America, and this kind of religious background noise. And in England, I'll tell you, I've not ever been, but just following from what I hear, if you even mention God, the public is in an uproar. They're unhappy about that. They don't like that.
I get a lot of email from people who are in, you know, the UK, and they're like, I can't believe you guys have to deal with what you deal with in your personal and political lives in the United States, because over there the culture is very, very different. I'm fascinated by the House of Commons, and you know, whenever somebody goes up and says something, and you've got I mean, it's very entertaining. You know, it's much better than what we've got here. They're all like, they're all grunting and yang and neighing, and then they bring the next guy out, and he says something else, and they grandstand. Is that productive? Does it get anything else done, or is it just more interesting to watch? I don't know. Or, you know, maybe in England it's old hat to them, but I like the idea that someone could use the fact that they simply do not believe in God, or ignore the subject altogether, and still be a viable candidate for public office. I love the idea that America may one day in the decades ahead have a candidate who can just vehemently come out and say, I don't believe, I'm done, but you know what, I bring a lot to the table, and here's what it is outside of religion, you know. And
if you think about it, that's what's really important. It's kind of closed-minded a little bit, a little short-sighted even, to think that someone must have one particular, almost irrelevant, I guess it's not irrelevant, but at least to specific issues, irrelevant point of view in order to even be put on the table as an option for public office. A little bit silly. I mean, you know, they always make the argument when I say that, you know, religion is a big deal in society, and that, you know, if you're not religious, then it opens up a whole other can of worms with just the way you think. But it seems to me that then just watching your videos and kind of seeing what goes on the Thinking Atheist Facebook, atheists are pretty much like-minded. I mean, to the rest of the country. I mean, I guess we're different in that we're atheists, but pretty much in every other political view. I mean, you had an anarchist on just before me, so there's really no reason that you shouldn't have any religious tie, and somehow that qualifies you any better.
Let me make sure I understand what you're saying, Nick. Hang on. Are you saying that we could have every different political viewpoint represented by an atheist? Was that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Because I don't see. I mean, I honestly, I have people who are liberal, who are conservative. I have libertarian. I have anarchist. I have all manner of people who are atheists, and they will email me and they'll say, "This is what I think and why," and they'll go off on a soapbox. And that would be my hope. I mean, I'd think that no matter what your position is, big government, small government, what have you, the form of government, there would be someone who did not bring the religious baggage to the table who could participate in the rest of the discussion. That would be my hope.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
See, you and I we're atheists, and we just agreed on something, man. It can happen. So I'm going to move on. Thanks for the call, Nick. I appreciate you.
No problem at all. Keep up all your good work, then.
Thank you very much. Illinois, you know, it's a great place, but I'll tell you, every time I read something, has the mob just completely taken over? I mean, have the 1930s and 40s, I mean, is it just continued all the way to 2011? I've got Funny to the Moon, apparently a Skype call. Hi, thanks for calling the Thinking Atheist podcast. What's your name?
My name's Travis Simmons.
Travis, what's going on?
We do a show called Funny to the Moon on Blog Talk as well, and I want to see an atheist/unconvinced, anti-war, not rich candidate. How about that?
I like the sound of that.
Okay.
I would like to see somebody who's not a theoretician, somebody who graduated with a law degree, never had a real job, and immediately sifted themselves into the political arena and then attempt to relate to the rest of us.
I'd like to see somebody who worked with their hands, who was any type of carpenter, a tile layer, someone who can cut some wood, someone who not lazy. With your question, what it was, the similarities, religion and politics.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not in either, if you're a religious person and you're not in their group, or if you're a politician and you're not in their group, then you're less than human to the people inside the group, right? If you say you don't vote, then they say, well, then you don't deserve to be on the roads. Then you just get whatever happens to you. If you don't believe in what they believe, then you get the fire.
You're saying that those who don't vote are excluded from the process? Make sure I understand you.
No, that's what a hardcore into politics person would say to that person.
Well, the world's filled with people who bitch and moan and do nothing. I mean, I understand the merit to a degree of an argument that says, look, if you're going to gripe about it, how many letters have you written? How many picket signs? How many times have you had your voice heard? And I'm not talking about sitting at home and writing letters to the editor all day. Honestly, I honestly think you're wasting your time. I mean, it feels nice, I'm sure, but when you send the email, people digest it in about 3 seconds and it's gone. But, I mean, to instigate real change, people are going to have to go from passive to active, aren't they?
Without a doubt. That's I'm a comedian, stand-up comedian, and I was doing a show at a gay bar in Seattle on Capitol Hill, and I asked them, do you think that gay marriage is a civil rights? Is a civil right? And they said, they clapped yes. And I said, but I agree, but gay persons aren't acting like civil rights persons. When Martin and Rosa wanted to ride the bus, they had to get out and march and walk and not ride the bus for 386 days. Gay people aren't acting like Martin and Rosa. They need to get out and mess up traffic, maybe every Thursday, like at 4:30, because 4:20 is for other stuff.
Are you an anarchist? Are you? Do you believe in government? Tell me what you believe.
No, I just don't think it would be wise to vote for anybody who says that they believe in an invisible man in the sky, are pro-war, or rich.
Now, let me back up. I've heard the word war come out a couple of times, and I believe some things are worth fighting for or against.
True.
If something was to happen, let's say another Hitler's Germany or let's say another Al-Qaeda attack had happened, and people will often go back and say, well, America created Al-Qaeda, blah, 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 blah. But I'm saying, let's say that they're on the offense in our borders and our lives and our property are in danger. If I go to war against that, does it make me a warmonger?
No.
I mean, war, honestly, is not always wrong. Sometimes some things are worth fighting for. And I'm not defending the war in Iraq and any of that stuff. That's all just a huge snafu. But I'm saying that if war happens, sometimes some things are fought for or against, and it is justified. So to pigeonhole people who are pro-war, well, I may have engaged, I may have chosen a battle, we may have done some, we may have taken it to the front lines for a cause, but it doesn't mean I'm a warmonger, it doesn't mean that I'm pro-war. Quite frankly, it just means that sometimes, you got to do what you got to do, right or wrong?
A person could make the argument that someone going into Afghanistan could do that not being pro-war, but I don't think they could make the same argument on Iraq, right?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about the region of the country and choosing which battle goes where. But quite frankly, look, let me put it to you like this. No matter what you believe, if somebody breaks into your house in the middle of the night, you can either be passive or you can be warlike. You can do whatever it takes to protect your life, your person, your property, your loved ones. And those people could say you were a violent person, but the truth is that you will do whatever it takes to protect your loved ones, yes? Well, are you a warmonger? Are you a violent person? Does that define you? Or are you taking a just but very direct act, whatever it takes, to make sure that your family, your home is protected? And if something was happening that was unjust, would you fight to abolish slavery? Would you fight to free the Jews from Hitler's Germany? Would you fight for a cause? Some people would. I think I would. I would hope I would if the cause was right. Does that make me a warmonger?
No, but if you live in a country that spends more of its money killing people than healing people, you might be part of some warmongering stuff.
I'm not
right?
I'm not excusing America. I mean, honestly, quite frankly, we have a lot to answer for. But I will say that there are a lot of times that America has picked up a weapon to fight against a cause that required defeat. It just had to be done. And America, there are instances where America stepped up and did it. And I mean, I'm proud of that. Did people die? Yes, but it just had to be done.
Right, but the people who are war profiteers use those things as reasons to keep generating and pumping money into the war machine like a corporation has to keep increasing profits.
I understand, and I think you're right. Honestly, people will profit from whatever. The economy goes south, somebody's going to profit. We go to war, somebody's going to profit. Those types of things, unfortunately, will probably always happen. And I'm not saying that I love war. What I'm saying is it's situations like these are hardly ever as simple as people make them out to be. And this is true when it comes to religion and politics. Look, if someone is religious and they run for office, quite frankly, we'll pigeonhole them. We'll say, well, they're a hater, or they're crazy. Quite frankly, most people, I believe, who run for public office who have a religious belief are far from it. They're good people. They want to do good things. Maybe they're disillusioned. Maybe they have an inflated opinion of their own mission or ego or abilities. Maybe they're running on sheer charisma. They think they've just got enough to overcome all obstacles because God is on their side. Who knows? But most of those people, they're good people. They're just deluded. They are misled. They are misguided. And because they can be misguided by what's in the Bible, we should be suspect about whether or not they can be misguided in areas of policy. Is that right or wrong? What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, it was the same thing with Bush. Okay, people have a religious leader, and they believe that you can't say anything bad against the leader. Like Republicans feel that way, right? Even more so than Democrats. Meaning that,
both people.
But the same thing with one of the priests that molested a kid, or Bishop Eddie Long, how the members in the church stuck by him, right? Even though everybody knew Clinton did whatever he did, but the Democrats stuck by him because that didn't matter with him trying to stop Republicans from what they were doing. Hey, the Republicans, even though Bush barely finished a sentence, they would act like on TV like he made the most wonderful speech they ever heard, while the liberals who are against him would tell the truth about him. Right? The Republicans right now might go for Romney, even Bible Belt ones who wouldn't even think about, like you said earlier, about somebody following Joseph Smith. But they need a hero to give it a black guy, and Mormons are anti-black. One of my old jokes was, what's worse, a black Mormon or a gay Republican? Black Mormon, because he's probably Republican too.
Let me say this. The Republicans don't have a candidate, I don't think. Right now, they got a bunch of people throwing their hat in the ring, but they don't have a candidate. And there's no one who has truly brought them out, brought them together, inspired them, and there may not be.
Are they afraid?
Are you inferring that people who have a problem with the current administration are automatically racist?
Not at all.
Okay, good.
Not at all. No, it's how they do it. Birth certificate. You could say that's not racist, but when he showed it, and then Trump said, "Well, how did this guy get into Harvard?" That's being racist. Okay, that's racist. That's their code.
Yeah.
Okay?
I don't put a lot of.
I'm not saying that
Trump's an attention whore.
I'm not saying it's racist if you're in the Republican or if you're in the Tea Party, but you're okay with being around a bunch of races. They hate immigrants. They hate Mexicans.
Oh, my God. Look, this is a gross overgeneralization. Conservatives don't hate black people. They don't hate Mexicans. They don't hate immigrants.
But they're okay with people who hate black people and hate immigrants. They're okay with it.
I've seen the party from the inside out. That's not been my experience. And
I told that joke that I just told you. Alabama guy, conservative Republican, came up to me and he said, I said, the reason for that joke is, how are you going to be in a group that really doesn't want you in the group? And he said, it's not that we don't want them in the group. It's that we just don't want to be the ones to introduce them at the party. And I said, thank you for being honest.
Yeah, that has been my experience. And what irritates me is that, you know, if I have a gripe about our current president, Barack Obama, and it has to do with policy or how much we spend or the direction, the lack of accountability, whatever. And you and I may or may not agree on a litany of those issues. But if I bring up a legitimate gripe, they attempt to minimize me by telling me I'm racist or painting me racist to other people. They say, you just hate black people. You just don't like a black. And that nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing could be further from the truth. I have a legitimate view. I have a legitimate opinion. And what many people will do is they attempt to bait you or paint you with a very broad stroke that really doesn't identify. I mean, worldviews are complex. People are complex, and they have hopefully a legitimate reason for getting there. And I think the same is true. We can really generalize about those who disagree with us, but I have found that those issues are often more complex than we make them out to be. And I think the people who are, who are promoting religion or who are against maybe a secular government, whatever drives them, I don't see it as hatred. I don't see it as racism. Your experience may be different, and so maybe you and I can educate each other, okay?
Okay, so one of my old jokes I did like in the election in 2008 was, I'm not saying that you're racist if you vote for John McCain. I'm just saying all the racists, if they vote, are voting for John McCain. Okay? So how are you going to be hanging out with them? That doesn't make any sense to me.
I'm not lumped in with an anti-black category because the candidate that I choose happens to not be the black candidate. If I add up their positions, if I add up their platforms, if I add up their histories, their experience, or what have you, and I choose a candidate who is not the black candidate, it doesn't make me racist just because there is a racist sect out there that discounted him because of the color of his skin. You can't lump me in with them.
No, I'm not saying that you're in with them. I was okay. All right, here, let's try it a different way. How I really explained that, I said there's a way to figure out who to vote for. It's 2008. I said McCain has 7 houses, Obama has 1. Okay, I'm gonna vote for the guy with 1 house because the guy with 7 might want to get 8 before he can get 1.
You're killing me. That man, like every other politician before him in that level, lives in a ridiculous cocoon of luxury and privilege. You know what I'm saying? The idea that he has fewer homes, he's living a high life, he is living it up all over the world. You know, our public servants are essentially living lives that you and I will never live. They're making salaries you and I will never make. They are being treated with a star celebrity status that you and I will never see, and yet they are our servants. But I don't think that's a fair way to add them up. They both lived the life of Riley. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
That's why the candidate I would vote for would have to be atheist, agnostic, or unconvinced, anti-war, at least not pro-war, okay, and not rich. Not rich. And how about having an open
Stop right there. I got to move on just a second. How did they become rich? If there's someone who went out and paid their dues and invented a better mousetrap and succeeded and failed and succeeded and failed, and they essentially invested their lives in creating something that no one else had created, or filled a niche market, or transformed some area of commerce. If they went out and staked their claim and became rich and they want to run for president, please run for president. They have real world experience. They paid their dues, and I'm not going to discount them because they're worth some coin. They earned it. So, I mean, to generalize and say, well, you know what, you're not rich, so you're more qualified, is ridiculous. Somebody goes out and they make a legitimate fortune, and they can back it up with great decisions, great leadership. Man, stick them in there.
I would prefer the person that I vote for have a common mind with the common man. Okay, and not be so far away like, Bush was, where he didn't even know what the scanner was. You're right. Maybe Obama is too far away, too. And Michelle said when it was running that they wouldn't run. If he didn't win this time, he wouldn't run again because they would be too far away and having the money to do right by people.
You and I are going to have to probably disagree on this one, my friend. I got a couple of other calls. We've been going here about 15 minutes. Let me move on. But I appreciate that very, very much, okay?
All right.
Are we even talking about religion? Are we even talking about religion? See how politics works? It's just a labyrinth of bunny trails, and you take one and it leads to 10 others. There is a hatred of the rich in some circles that I tend to avoid. Those of us who believe in the free market honestly think that it's your money. Yeah. And how about not just what the number in your bank account is, but what is the currency of your life? What have you done? What have you produced? What is your character? What kind of decisions have you made? What kind of people do you hang out with? What is your level of education? How many problems in this world have you solved? And for how many people are you truly qualified as a person? Outside of that, it's your money. It's your money. And it's none of the government's damn business. 917, hi, you're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
Hi, this is Jay from New York.
Jay, what's going on?
How you doing? Okay, well, a couple of things. First, you're a little disingenuous when you say that the founders didn't put God into the Pledge of Allegiance, since they didn't write the Pledge of Allegiance. It was written 100 years later. But they did put God in the Declaration of Independence.
You understand, though, that the only mention of God in the United States Constitution is to protect government from the role of religion, from the influence of religion. It's not just to protect religion, it's really to protect the government from the influence of religion. Are you a proponent of religion in politics?
Well, no, I'm not actually. I'm not religious at all. I'm a scientist. I'm a capitalist, so it's kind of hard to believe in God and religion. I would love to, but I just can't. But still, I realize the fact that this country was founded based on religion. It was religious ideas that put into the principles that every man is equal under God, and every single man has equal rights, and every single man should be treated equally under the government. That's something that came from religious beliefs, not from beliefs of people who don't believe in God.
No, I think the equality of man is innate. You don't require a scriptural construct to support freedom from oppression. You know, I mean, there may be scriptures that relate to that in many foundational documents out there, but the desire to be free from oppression and for equality, well, that's not necessarily constrained to a biblical construct.
Well, but okay, it's not constrained, but it's the fact that it's religious. People, our founding fathers, were religious. They did mention God over and over again, and it was them that put into place the system that all men are equal. It wasn't, when you're atheist and you believe in evolution or stuff like that, it's very easy to say, hey, people, our group, our family is superior. We don't have to give other people rights because look, they're over there. What do we care about them? We're here, and there is no God, so we don't have to treat them equally. When you believe in a God that created all men equal, you are
asserting that if I am an atheist, that I am an every man for himself mentality. I have no concept of benefiting my fellow man or community, the benefit of the community, which actually fits the evolutionary model. What you're saying is, if I'm a true atheist, I only care about me, me, me.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the country was founded by people who were religious, and from the religion was brought forth the principle that all men are created equal. I'm not saying that atheists couldn't have done it, or atheists can't believe that all men are equal. They can, but the fact is that this country was created by people who were religious.
Let me read to you a quote from our fourth president, James Madison. He says, quote, "The purpose of separation of church and state is to keep forever from these shores this ceaseless strife that has soaked the soil of Europe in blood for centuries." At the outset, he wanted church and state separated. This was not founded as a Christian nation. In fact, they were essentially escaping the influence of a government that was wildly influenced by a church. So we're really not a Christian nation. There may have been some deists atheist beliefs in there, maybe some outright theist beliefs, but certainly not the majority, and certainly not defining what America is or was. Now, some of that is cultural, I think, back then, to invoke God. But I stand against the idea that America was founded as a Christian nation. I just don't think the evidence is there.
Right. Okay. I'm not. I'm not saying it should be a Christian nation. There's a lot of evidence to what you're saying in the Declaration of Independence. It says to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. So it's like kind of pandering to both the religious and the non-religious. And same with the next paragraph, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That's by their Creator, which could be nature, or it could be a religious God. But to say that God or religion is completely separate from the foundation of this country, or should be completely eliminated from anything that is written, or that God should never be mentioned in a public, or in the Congress, or in a public place, or in a court. I mean, that's where I differ with you.
All right. You have a point about the Declaration of Independence, and you're right. God is invoked. How much of that is overt? The biblical God, the God of the New and Old Testament, or how much of that is just Mother Nature? I can't speak to that, but I take your point. I appreciate your call very much.
Right. Well, thanks for taking it. I just like to replace the word God maybe with good. That's what I do.
You replace the word God with good?
Right. And so when people who are religious believe that God says this should, this and that, I believe, because there's such beauty in religion. There's also evil in certain areas, but there's a lot of the beautiful things that as a society we understand we brought from religion. So beauty,
wow, but is beauty truly is a legitimate way to construct the government of a nation? I mean, it's beautiful is one thing, poetic and amazing, and many of the most beautiful works of art on our planet were done for religious reasons. But the idea that religion's beauty is a reason that we should celebrate it as part of a foundational governmental cornerstone of America or any nation, I don't know that I buy that. Beauty and truth, those two don't necessarily come together.
Treat others as you would have you be treated yourself. I mean, in science and evolution, that's not a given that you should do that. But in religion it is, and that's that's kind of beautiful, because if you don't have religion, you don't have to believe that. If you're an atheist, you can easily say, you know what, we don't have to treat all people as equal. We don't have to treat those people as equal. We don't have to treat these. It's not a given unless you have religion. So that's what the beauty of religion, when it comes to all men are created equal and everyone should be treat each other equally. That's kind of beautiful to me.
All right. Thank you for calling, though. I appreciate it.
All right. Bye.
All right. Take care. I had a message in from Luke. He said, I live in Canada. I'm a closeted atheist, so I go to a Catholic school. Now, in Canada, Catholic schools are not private. They are fully public and paid for by our taxes. The Catholic board also gets more funding than the public one. But I want to make it clear why there are still Catholic schools, and that they don't teach creationism. Back in our history, there was always problems between the French Catholics and English Protestants, so Parliament made sure the French could keep their culture and language, so they set up French Catholic schools in French areas. This is while the public schools were Protestant. Never really got rid of the Catholic part, so now we're stuck with Catholic schools everywhere getting more funding than public ones. Janine wrote in and said, I feel that religion is a socially induced mental disease brought on by the manipulation of our evolutionary instincts, and the worst thing for our country is that these diseased people are running it. Not only that, but it's socially required to have this disease to run our country. I follow politics and loves me a good debate, but I cannot count the number of times I've had to pick my jaw up off the floor with some of these biblically inspired laws and the arguments for or against them. Is the teachings of religion, is the teachings of religion that create extreme stances like a Bachman or Palin, or is it just the mentality of the religious? It's easy to manipulate on any given issue. Thanks for the email, Janine. Honestly, people are easy to manipulate. Sorry. Religious, non-religious, whatever. We live in a culture where more people know about the private life of Paris Hilton than they do about their own highest offices of government. Quite frankly, and people feed on that ignorance, and they are allowed to do whatever they want, whenever they want, because they know most people are too busy watching the E! Network to really care. They're watching Dancing with the Stars. They have no idea who the vice president, who the treasurer is. They have no idea who's leading Congress. They have no idea what laws are on the books. They have no idea what most of these candidates honestly believe outside of their 30-second campaign commercials. It's we the sheeple. And education could help the political system like it helped those of us who sort of overcame our former religious beliefs. Education seems to be the key, and the more we know, the more we learn, the more better informed decisions we can make. 908, thanks for waiting. Hi, you're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
How you doing? My name is Keith.
You got an opinion on this, man? Come on, talk
Jersey.
to me.
Yeah. Well, what my question is what I don't understand what the big deal about it being founded under God and this and that. Like, that's old school. What doesn't work, we throw out. I don't understand why people are hung up on the fact that, oh, well, it says God in the Constitution, it says this, that, and the other thing is founded under God. So what? Slavery was big back then too. We don't tout that anymore. I mean, I just don't get it. I don't understand what the big deal is. What?
I heard in the 90s, Dennis Miller had a great line, and he said, "What other 200-year-old document do you still use that?" I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but in its unchanged form. I mean, it'd be like using a 200-year-old, instruction manual. Those things must be updated. What a great point. What a great point. Many of those things, honestly, culturally at the time may have been accepted, but we've evolved past them.
Exactly, and that's my point. We've figured out that certain things aren't true anymore, just like every other aspect of science or life. And it's just who cares? I mean, people all the time. I have debates on people on Facebook, old high school teachers. Oh, it's in the Constitution. I'm like, who cares? Slaves built the White House.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. Why does that make it right? Why does it make it that we have to stick by that because of what it says? I mean, it comes back to what are we going to do now? Argue about the Bible because the Bible's written down? I mean, I just, I don't know. I don't understand why people are hung up on that and why makes a big deal in our.
I think it's
head.
the equivalent of putting the big, Greek fish on your car and driving around town. I mean, it doesn't change anybody's mind really. It doesn't, it doesn't really do anything. But it makes you feel better. It makes you feel more holy, more important. It makes you you feel more worthy, more moral. And honestly, if these people are running for public office, they are in the business of trying to be as appealing to as many people as possible. And if you live in a society where a huge percentage of people have some belief in some God somewhere, somehow, well, then it becomes a chess move. You just invoke God, usually in some nebulous way, almost like Hollywood does it, talk about your faith. And then, it's strategy. I don't think it's as much about, it may or may not be as about conviction, but it sure is about electability. Hey, look at me. Look how worthy I am. I'm clean. I'm a person of faith. Please check this box,
Right. Yeah, I can't wait until the debates of the president's running. They hide their religion because that's not politically correct anymore to tout your religion. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Do you think we'll ever have an atheist? I mean, in our lifetimes, do you honestly think there'll be somebody who just says, "Screw a whole bunch of that. I don't believe in God, but I am running for the highest office in the land"? Do you think we'll see that in our lifetimes?
Well, I think it's definitely becoming more popular with the internet and everything else, all the information flying around. I think, people are really realizing that what they've thought to be true for so long that it is really not. There's nothing out there to even suggest that it's true, and it's just that, it's just a virus. And I really do think that more and more people are becoming more in tune to that, and I don't know. I'm hopeful that it will be. I mean, I noticed the younger generation are less religious. So, as they become, older and into office, I really do think that, at some point, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 37. I hope by the time maybe I'm 60, it will be it will definitely be feasible.
Hey, we'll keep working to that end. I think that conversations like these are helping to change the game. At least I hope so. So thanks for the call very much.
Thanks, buddy.
I had a great letter from Gary. He said, I hate that politicians end their speeches with God bless you and God bless the USA. I prefer, thanks for listening, drive safely. That's so much more helpful. Drives me crazy, too. I mean, whether or not you believe that Obama believes or doesn't believe in God, I honestly don't know. I don't think he's played that card, honestly, one way or the other. It's impossible to know what he really does believe. But he does play the God card, at the end of the speech. I think it's because he is societally expected to. God bless all of you. God bless these United States of America. It's said so often it stops having meaning. Wouldn't it be nice if they said something instructive after it was over, like go out and make your world, make your day a better place. Find some constructive nugget to give people other than weird invocations of an invisible sky daddy. 919, thanks for waiting. You're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
Hi, it's Kevin.
Kevin, I can't hear you all that great, but I'm going to do my best here. What do you got for me, Kevin?
All right, that's probably because I'm calling from Russia.
What do you got to bring to the discussion today?
Well, as an outsider, I'm just calling to express my frustration that what I'm monitoring and seeing in what's going on in American politics, how much religion is involved in all the politics, and what's going on with Planned Parenthood and how the government is trying to. Some people in the government are trying to take women's rights for abortion, and of course I'm also a gay man, so I'm also monitoring what's going on with LGBT rights, and I see how slowly it's all going because mostly because of the religious people who control politics and who try to deny people legal recognition of their families just because they think that the Bible says it's not okay to be gay. And of course, I also see all this business like in God we trust on American money and praying in the Senate before the session starts and giving testimony on the Bible. I don't know if it's still going on, but so many elements, so many things are going on where religion is involved in politics. I cannot imagine how can you live like this and still think that it's okay and it's fine when the Constitution says that religious and the state should be divided.
We have made great strides, though. Look, I understand there are tremendous challenges that still face the gay and lesbian and transgender community, and I know that those will, in some level, they'll probably always face some measure of opposition from those who don't get it or understand or agree. But I will say that societally, we have made great strides, in my humble opinion, in how we approach the gay and lesbian community. I mean, you're seeing the tremendous influx of gay and lesbian presences and personalities all over network television. We have gay political candidates, certainly not president at this level, but you've got Congress people. I mean, we are making strides. It's incremental, but we are making strides forward, and it would be my hope that the same would be the case with the God discussion as well.
Yeah, but it's all slow, very, very slow because of the religion.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last section. Could you say it again for me?
I think it's very slow because of the religion.
Well, let me go back to the abortion debate very quickly.
Yeah.
In the Christian community, we are taught that life begins at conception. When I was growing up, that when life happens. The sperm and the egg, bam, there's a human life. Even at the cellular level, we are taught that this is a person. Most people who I have known, and I've known a great many in the Christian community, who are against abortion, are not against abortion because they want to demean or diminish women. That's totally incorrect. They're not. It's not about taking away rights. They are against abortion because they have the conviction that this is the destruction of a human life, and so they've taken what they believe is a moral stand. Now, I understand it. You know, I once had that opinion, and I can understand it. My views on abortion have broadened a little bit. I still don't like it. The abortion debate, I think, is wildly complex at what stage, but I'm a proponent of stem cell research. I don't believe it's any of the government's business, at least up to a point. You know, when it becomes a legal issue. I mean, I don't endorse late term. But I'm saying that the abortion debate isn't being brought on by the religious community because they're trying to strip women of rights. It's because they honestly believe that there is a human life in play, and they want to protect that life. They are operating, maybe it's misguided, but they are operating from a position of we want to save lives instead of see them destroyed. Does that make sense?
Well, yes, it does make sense, but I think religious people are arguing this only because they already believe that the soul is already there in a human being, and that's why we have to save the life of that human being. Or, I don't know.
No, it's a lack. Honestly, it's a lack of education. You know, when I started to get to, and I'm still learning, getting into the stem cell debate, I was fascinated by it. And I realized how much I did not know. Even when I wasn't really arguing, but I'd sort of formed an armchair quarterback opinion on the subject where you said, no, stem cell research, err on the side of caution. If there's a human life that might be involved, you don't want to touch it. And before you know it, you're having an opinion without really, understanding the process. And when I began to really understand what it was and what it did, I was amazed. I was fascinated by how many people then I would speak to about it who they didn't know either. They had adopted a mindset of what they thought it was and what they thought it implied, but they didn't really know what the argument was. They had just decided they were going to err on the side of caution, and if there's a human life that might be involved, we're against it. Bam, all human life is sacred, even at the cellular level. For them, it's a moral argument, and there's a tremendous need for education out there. I think things are changing, though. I mean, I don't know how it looks from Russia, but from the inside, it's a slow walk upward. But we're starting to make some strides, and I think the system is worth fixing from the inside out,
Well, yes, of course. In Russia, it's a little bit different. We're not that religious because we had a history of almost the entire 20th century without God. And
how does Russia react to the gay community? Are you accepted? Are you ostracized? How do people respond to you?
Absolutely ostracized. Just a week ago, we had a gay pride parade, which was banned again for the 6th time. We cannot even have a parade officially sanctioned, and people get arrested for trying to speak out, even though we do have a right to free speech. We're just not allowed.
Do you feel that slowly the tide will turn in the next few decades, the next century?
If we do not get too much religious, which is already happening, and we are getting more and more involved with Christianity, Orthodox Christianity, I hope that we have a chance.
Well, I certainly hope the same. I don't know much about the societal pressures that you face in Russia, but there was a time in America when and those instances still happen, but the tide's turning here, man, and I hope it turns for you. Okay?
Yeah, I hope so. Thank you.
Thank you for calling. Let's talk to 616. Hi, who's this?
Hey, Seth. My name's Ethan.
Ethan, what's up, man?
Well, I was raised to be Republican, and I kind of am. I'm still listed as a Republican, but since I've become an atheist, I don't know, you kind of lean more liberal when, if you're not a Christian, you know what I mean? And I think, I side with conservatives a lot, through a lot of things. And I think overall, I think kind of like the right kind of does use religion a little too much. Well,
a lot too much.
Yeah, for sure.
Overwhelmingly too much.
Yeah, I think too, it's kind of interesting. Through some of the calls, like I gotta tell you, like I was kind of getting a little bit angry, listening to some of the calls. But like for example, like when they talked about like unalienable rights, you know, inside the Declaration of Independence, it's like, well, you know, they thought that, but were they applying it to like, you know, homosexuals? Were they applying it to blacks? You know what I mean? Like, and you know, you got to kind of remember, like, there is a context in which a lot of words were used back in the day, and they're not the same as, you know what I mean?
Don't beat yourself up about being raised to be Republican, because quite frankly, every political party has children that they will raise under a certain mindset or a worldview that they believe to be right. Now, there are those who say that, no, I raised my child totally objectively. That's crap. I mean, every parent is going to have some level of influence on how their child shapes an opinion. My hope would be that the number one defining thing they teach a child is critical thinking skills. Let me see if I understand and can relate to your story, and you tell me if I'm off base, okay?
All right.
You were raised in a conservative Republican Christian home. Is that accurate?
Yep.
All right. And you were raised to disagree with homosexuality. You believe it is immoral because the Bible said it was. In fact, God destroyed entire cities in Scripture because of homosexual acts, and it was damaging to society, right? God created Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, right? Am I on track so far?
Yeah, pretty much, man. You got it.
All abortion is wrong because abortion stops a beating heart, right?
Yep.
Now, and you were raised to support conservative candidates because not only did they match up with your parents' political fiscal views, but there's a real good chance that they extolled some sort of a faith, right? They would invoke God from time to time. I mean, did you find yourself leaning toward conservative candidates who talked about God?
Yeah, I did, but when I look at it now, I kind of I'm a little bit skeptical because you realize like politicians, it's more of a career now, and I think a lot of times they use the God card to get votes, you know, because we see it on both Democrats and Republicans. Like, they use God all the time.
Dude,
you know,
let me tell you.
You can't really say what.
I heard someone say that politicians are like diapers. They should be changed often and for exactly the same reason. That applies to all sides. It applies to Republican, Democrat, and everybody in between. The entire system is you know what? I believe most of the truly qualified people don't even run. Why? They don't need it. They don't need the spotlight. They don't need the constant adulation. They don't need the grief. They don't need the media popping telescopic lenses into the bedrooms of their children. They don't need the constant harping and the media. Trail of media vehicles after they don't need all that. Quite frankly, they're going to go somewhere else and they're going to stake their claim and be a success, and they don't require all this other crap. So what we get in the political system is the leftover. You know?
Yeah.
But let me finish very quickly. Back to your original worldview, and I wanted to make this point. When you became an atheist, how old were you?
18.
Okay. Now, as an atheist, you found yourself seeing the abortion debate in a different light, right? You no longer saw it as the sperm and the egg meet and life begins and the huge spark and the angels sing and and it's another angel in heaven. You begin to see it as more of a process, right? A process that can be observed at the cellular level. I mean, there's no brain, there's no nervous system, there's no. It's not a human at that measure. You begin to see it through a different lens. Yes?
Well. Yes and no. Like, the way I look at abortion is kind of the same way I look at, like, burning the American flag. Like, you know, I think we should have the freedom to burn the American flag, but, I mean, I never would. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't ever, like, really advise someone to get an abortion, but I think we should have the freedom to have abortions. But when it comes to abortion, I think at the same time, a lot of things about it aren't even correct. Like, I think a lot of people, they lie to try to push their own agenda. Like,
on both sides. I really do believe on both sides. Everybody's got an agenda.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, think about it. A late-term abortion is a violent act. I myself, I have a real problem with it. And it doesn't mean that I don't want women to have rights. It does. But I tell you, I don't want to be excluded from the discussion if a human life may be involved because I'm a man. You know, if I have some concerns, I think it means I'm being a human being. Would I like to see a world without abortion? You betcha. But if I disagree with it now, in whatever stage it might be, it's not because I see that it is the extermination of human life. Now the rules have changed. Now I have better information. Now I'm making a decision based on a different set of guidelines, and it changes the whole argument for me.
I think it's the same way with pretty much all issues. Like when you turn to an atheist, I think everything looks a lot different to you, and you got to kind of, you got to I don't know how to say it. You got to reevaluate all your positions that you took before.
Here's a good example.
That you were raised.
When you are a Christian, right, and they told you homosexuality was wrong, it is a rebellion against God, right? So that drove your opinion, and you could not support a candidate who was either gay or supported gay rights. Now, you're an atheist, and you get information, you learn the scientific truth that sexuality is hardwired at birth.
Yeah,
and there's strong evidence. It's not somebody who's rebellion, who was abused as a child. I mean, those things will happen. Honestly, I think they're a byproduct. I believe, and I'm continuing to learn, I believe that sexuality is hardwired at birth. You are hardwired to be attracted to one way or the other. Now that you see homosexuality through that lens, it changes how you approach the whole argument. You see it as a legitimate expression of attraction. Yes?
Yeah, but to me personally, homosexuality, I had this one thought. I was thinking about, is it possible that two men can love each other the same way that I love a woman? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of I thought I was losing my mind, to be honest. I was that is crazy, But then I thought about it, I was why not? You know what I mean? And I'll never understand it. I'll never feel that, but I really believe that other people do, and I think a lot of people they're just as sincere about loving the same sex as I am about loving the opposite sex. You know what I mean?
So if you had been a Christian adult at 18 and you had a conservative candidate who happened to have who was a homosexual, would you have voted, or could you have voted for that person?
No, honestly.
Okay. Now?
Yeah.
At this moment, if you had an election and you had someone who agreed with your worldview and your fiscal policies and they were homosexual, could you vote for them?
Yeah, I think I could, for sure.
You are an example of the type of change that incrementally we hopefully are going to be seeing wider and wider, more and more. People are getting better information, and as a result, they're making broader, better decisions, don't you think?
Yeah, well, I would definitely hope so.
I mean, you and I are evolving. We are evolving, man.
It doesn't just stop with us, right?
Well, I'm glad to hear your story. And I have to say, everybody, those who engage in the issues of sexuality and abortion, they aren't, I'll tell you, if they're operating from the community that is a faith-based community, and you can attest to this, I'll bet, they're not haters. They're not out to limit people. They're not out to control people. Honestly, they see it as an issue of morality and, in the case of abortion, life and death. And they're fighting for life. They see it as the saving of a human life, and that drives them. And they simply need to be educated that, you are using the wrong set of guidelines. You're looking at this situation through the incorrect lens. Fair enough?
Yeah, I would agree. I had gay friends when I was, even fundamentalist Christian, but I think after a while, I thought about it, and I was kind of now, if I was friends with someone, and they weren't, supporting my rights as a human being, would I still be able to be friends with them? And I saw a lot of gay people who could still be friends with me despite that, and I was kind of wow, I was really taken aback. I was wow, you can be a friend, in ways that I could never be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right, I've got one more caller I need to squeeze in before I wrap it up. Thanks for a great call, though. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
All right. Take care of yourself.
You too.
It's not a religious issue overtly, but part of me would like to do a whole show on the whole gay rights issue. And I very quickly have to tell you a story, and I don't think my buddy would mind me sharing this with you. He was and is my best friend. We met in high school. I was a sophomore. He was a junior. We were just tight. I mean, just best friends. I was best man at his wedding, and he moved away out of state, and we still kept in touch. And he divorced after a few years, and a few years after that, he wrote me a long letter, and the letter informed me that he had been hiding a secret, and the secret was that he was gay. Now, I was still a believer at the time. This was around late 1990s, I think. And I was heartbroken. I mean, for me, it was he was in rebellion against God. He could never have a truly happy life. He would spend the rest of his life at risk for AIDS or whatever. I mean, I had all of this tower of objections in my mind. And something funny happened. Over the course of several years, I realized, we kept in touch, I realized that he was the same guy I had always known and loved as a friend. I trust my ATM number and my car keys with him. I would trust my loved ones in his care. He was a man of utmost character. He worked hard. He played hard. He lived his life. He encountered all manner of obstacles. Societal challenges. I'm sure he probably had some discrimination in the workplace. His family took him a long time to get over that hump. And I had an epiphany, and I realized that, first of all, this man did not choose who he was or was not attracted to. No person would put themselves through what he has been through, or anyone in the gay community in a conservative culture would put themselves through. Nobody would do that voluntarily. He was finally being true to himself. And I realized that he was the same guy that I had always known, and I loved and trusted him as much or more than anybody else, including most of my heterosexual friends. I saw this homosexual argument from a different lens, and it changed everything for me. And I went from being afraid of the topic to being fascinated by it and to being a supporter of gay rights. And the same can be true with so many other things. We look at them with better information, and we achieve a different kind of a lens to see it through, and it changes the whole argument. 447, I've got time for one more. Who's this?
Hi, Seth. My name's Stefania. I'm calling from England.
I remember your voice from a few shows back. I'm glad you called, Stefania. What's going on?
Oh, I thank you. Religion in politics. I think that if a politician is religious, then it's unavoidable either way. The religious beliefs are going to influence their politics. It's just the politician, they'll just pick and choose when to lean on the religion to give some kind of authority on what they're doing, but then in other times ignore it when it suits them, when the religion would disagree with their political choices. So, for example, a time when a politician would look to their religion to give authority on what they're doing would be the troubles in Northern Ireland with the English Protestant government fighting against the Catholic IRA. They would think, well, a Protestant government works more than a Catholic government, so our religious beliefs can justify our political stance when it comes to Ireland. And an example when they will discount their religious beliefs, if we bring it to modern day, the war on terror, put that in quotes. So you've got like rendition flags and torture techniques such as waterboarding. They would be happy to ignore their religious beliefs because it will further their political career. So I think it's a case of it's unavoidable, but they will just pick and choose when they will look to their religious beliefs to kind of drive where their political career is going.
I had someone say to me, if you elect a politician, you are essentially electing his worldview.
Yes.
And that is why if someone accepts the idea of whatever, pick whatever in the Bible that is crazy, out of control, fantastic, and believes it. If they are in the arena of making policy, what they believe in their personal lives does affect what they do in their public ones.
Of course they do, but the politician, I don't know about American politicians as such, but for English politicians, they are very, very trained to be in the media and to say certain things and to not say certain things. And they have this really good knack of being able to introduce religion and their beliefs in religion when it suits them in their political career.
I get that.
The thing is, it's a case of, these torture techniques and Guantanamo Bay and things like that. Their religion, for example, the Bible, treat each other as you would like to be treated yourself, the golden rule in the New Testament. If they followed that, then there would be no torture, there would be no waterboarding, there would be no Guantanamo Bay. Everyone would have the right to a fair trial and so on and so on. So, yes, their religious beliefs will influence their politics, but to a certain point, they'll pick and choose when the religious influence will influence their politics.
Yeah. I've got to move on. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Seth.
One thing that we haven't spent a lot of time covering is the influence of religion in politics from, say, the Islamic point of view. I mean, quite frankly, we're dealing not just with governing a nation, but we're talking about what determines policy, whether it's going to war, whether it's protecting or defending or allocating the resources that are controlled by people who are ideologues, who believe in Allah, who, quite frankly, if they believe the Quran, believe that the world should all be Muslim, and they're willing to go to battle to make that happen. They're willing to sacrifice themselves, their sons, their daughters to make it happen. All of that brings religion into a political debate. It's a wildly complex scenario. The number one thing I was hoping to accomplish today, I think, was to draw a big red circle around what a world might be like one day if people will run on what they do and do not believe, if they will run on a specific platform outside of the influence of an invisible floating man and a guy who came to Earth 2,000 years ago, or the Prophet Muhammad, or, pick a religion, people who are dealing with human problems and finding human solutions. Wouldn't it be nice to see someone who just went out finally on television and said exactly what they thought, whatever it was, whatever the consequences, just said it. They didn't care what the pollsters thought. They didn't care what the culture said. They just said it honestly. You know what? I don't believe in God. We have real human problems. Here are the solutions that I see coming, and if you disagree with me, fine, but that's just the way it is. Wouldn't it be nice if atheism, I don't know that I believe in an atheist party. Honestly, I just think the entire political system should be without God. You shouldn't require an atheist party. Wouldn't it be nice, though, if the idea of God didn't come into play? People just were elected on what they do and do not know, what they can and cannot bring to the table, whether or not they are or are not qualified. And it's not about how glossy their faith, family, God, and country values television commercials are. Now we can dream, can't we?
Follow The Thinking Atheist on Facebook and Twitter. Watch dozens of original videos on the Thinking Atheist YouTube channel. And visit our website for resources, links, contact information, the editor's blog, and more. TheThinkingAtheist.com.